Hi, Jasper. Hi there, little buddy. Hi, little buddy. Good morning, Dada. How are you? Oh, Jasper just ran away. Oh, Jasper's weighing himself. Did you hear the beep? He does that several times a day. I think he's up to 16 and a half pounds. And he's back. Jasper, what's up? Just trying to wait a few minutes to see if more folks show up. Jasper Doodle, you sure are wagging that butt. There must be another cat out in the yard. Is there a cat out there? I saw one a little while ago. We have so many cats in our neighborhood. Oh, well, hi there, little buddy. Oops. Jasper Doodle. There's Julie. Did you think I would forget? No, of course not. You wouldn't forget, Julie. Jasper, what's the matter? You hear him crying? Come here, Jasper. Do you need some love-ums? I'll give you some love-ums. Come on. Yeah, you're a good boy. You're a good boy. Julie and Dada want to see you. Look at this big boy. Oh my goodness. Yeah, he's so good. So good as he bites me and claws me to shreds. Hey, 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 hey. That's not very nice. That's not very nice. Oh, you're... Ow! Okay, that wasn't cool. He got stuck in my watch and then clawed my thumb. I could check my blood sugar now. All right, hold on a second while I go grab a Band-Aid. That was mean, Jasper. That was mean. So maybe I should stop trying to pick him up, eh? Maybe I should learn my lesson from this. Right, Jasper? All right. Band-Aid in place. He stuck his claw right in me, Julie. All right. So, if folks show up late or they don't show up at all, guess what? They can catch the replay on YouTube. But you know what they won't get to do? They won't get to collect Pride-A-Doodle points. But you will. One more moment. Okay. Where's Jasper? Jasper Doodle. I think he's watching a neighborhood cat out there. All right. Let's get started, shall we? We are on the very last chapter of Dada Veda Prajanananda's spiritual memoir, From Brooklyn to Benares and Back. And of course, you can catch the replays of the previous chapters if you missed any. I'm going to drop the link right now. There's my YouTube link. There's December. You're just in time for chapter 9, which is entitled Back to Brooklyn. During my last years in Cairo sector, composing and performing music became one of my biggest interests. But it was difficult to play my kind of music with its English lyrics in Albania, where I spent most of my time. That's why I jumped at a chance in the summer of 2007 to ride on the Kundalini Express for a tour of music festivals in the U.S. The Kundalini Express was an old yellow school bus that some members of Ananda Marga bought. They took out the rear seats and converted the back into a sleeping area. Colorfully decorated on the outside, it resembled the hippie buses of the late 1960s and early 70s. No wonder it drew some interesting looks from tourists when we took it through Midtown Manhattan at the start of our journey. The Kundalini Express? That was a song by Love and Rockets in the 90s. Is there any connection? The tour was led by youths in their 20s. Back in 1970, young people were the only kind of Margis you could find. But 40 years later, there were older folks like myself, as well as this up-and-coming new generation who wanted to spread spirituality throughout the country. They arranged a visit to festivals such as Floyd Fest in Virginia and the Transformist Festival in North Carolina. There were also open-air concerts in Asheville, North Carolina and Knoxville, Tennessee, as well as events in New England. I performed with young musicians who sang background vocals on my songs and accompanied me on different instruments. My experience from the 60s came in handy on the tour. When we reached the gates of the Transformist Festival, people on the bus were shocked. Some of the greeters at this avant-garde festival were completely naked. I remained calm and said that we should enter anyway and see what happens. It turned out to be a good event, and I was able to teach meditation to a few young men. After the summer festival tour ended, I went back to Albania, but that was not the end of my involvement with my native land. For the past several years, I had been asked by some people in Ananda Marga if I could help out with the propagation of the movement in the U.S. I wasn't interested at first, but as my involvement in spreading spirituality through music grew, the idea became more attractive. Finally, in September of 2008, after 10 years in Cairo sector, mostly in Albania, I packed my bags and returned to the USA, making my base in the Ananda Marga headquarters in Queens, not far from my birthplace in Brooklyn. After more than 30 years abroad, I was back in the U.S., not just for a quick visit, but for an extended period. Our office in Queens was in a multifamily house that Ananda Marga had purchased in 1980s and later renovated. When I was growing up in Brooklyn in the 1950s, Queens was thought of as a suburban residential area with the lawns, trees, and gardens that urban Brooklyn lacked. Many middle-class families flocked to Queens and later Long Island to buy homes. The Queens of 2008 was not like this 1950s dream vision. It was a crowded, multi-ethnic urban community. Our office was located in a Spanish-speaking area. Not sure? After getting settled in my new accommodations, I began to travel. I went to the southeastern part of the U.S., visiting Atlanta and a few places in North Carolina. I gave a lecture at the State University in New Paltz, New York, and even made a trip to Nicaragua and Costa Rica, where Ananda Marga has considerable activities. When I was not traveling, I tried to do something productive in the New York City area. Toot toot! And here is a photo. Now this is a concert in Knoxville during the Kundalini Express tour of 2007. And I think you can recognize Dada in this photo. So cool. Bar preacher. One day at the beginning of my career as a monk in Europe, my supervisor shocked me when he asked, "Have you ever gone into the bars where the young people drink and dance and try to meet people interested in meditation?" What a crazy question, I thought, but I quietly replied no. 30 years later, I did indeed start entering bars, not to drink, but to share my music and spirituality. I never thought it would happen, but it did. I wanted to perform music as much as I could, and one way to do that was by singing at open mics. Open mics are evenings at cafes, bars, and clubs where anyone can sign up on a list and perform for about 10 to 15 minutes. I checked the internet and found many such opportunities in the New York area. When I checked the open mic listings, I noticed almost all of these sessions took place at bars. I wanted to avoid the bars, thinking the atmosphere would not be right for me, that it would be odd for an orange-robed yogi to mingle there. So I carefully sifted through the listings and found one open mic held in a coffee house in Brooklyn. I went to the coffee house and performed. It went well enough for me to consider going to more open mics, but there were no more coffee house open mics to choose from, so I had to try some of the bars. The first bar that I visited was the Sidewalk Cafe in New York's East Village. This bar is a well-known music spot. Its Monday night open mic is packed with singer-songwriters and other entertainers, and their open mic session runs into the wee hours of the night, well past the bedtime of a yogi. At the Sidewalk Cafe, they use a lottery system to determine who will perform at what time. The would-be performers line up in front of a table where an employee takes down their name and holds up two fists, asking them to choose one. Then he opens a fist, looks at something, and gives them a number. When my turn at the table came, he was taken aback to see a turbaned orange-robed yogi. He opened the fist that I had chosen and told me my number was 25. I sat down but soon realized that I wouldn't be on for another 6 hours or so, and the first performer was going to begin at 8 p.m. I knew I didn't want to wait till 2 a.m., but I just sat there wondering what to do. After some time, the person in charge of the selection process came to me and said, "Well, since you're new here, we can give you a break." He gave me a lower number, and I was able to perform at around 10 p.m. I was only given time to perform one song, so I did As the World Spins Round. It got a good reception, and the next week when I went back there, I got a very low number when I chose one of the clenched fists. I believe they gave the numbers out arbitrarily according to their whims and personal likes and dislikes, but I can't prove it. After having played at the famous Sidewalk Cafe, I had enough confidence to walk into any bar and perform. On a cold night 2 days before Christmas, 2008, I went to an open mic in a basement theater in St. Mark's Place in the East Village. 40 years earlier, I had often walked up and down St. Mark's Place, which was then the main hangout for the hippies of New York City. Hi, Gary. The counterculture aura of 1968's St. Mark's Place was kept alive in this theater. The basement theater was dimly lit, and the first thing I did was to enter my name in a lottery. This was a real lottery. The names were chosen from a box. I got a high number but decided to stay. I put my guitar in a storage area in the back and sat down to watch the show until my number was called. You know what this reminds me of, Dada? It reminds me of doing karaoke, going to a karaoke bar like in Las Vegas. You have to wait for hours to sing one song. It was a wild show indeed. One performer had devil's horns attached to his head, and another performer psychoanalyzed him. A dancer went on stage adorned only in Christmas tree lights. There was a lot of beer consumed by the audience and the performers, and the smell of the beer on the floor reminded me of the basement of my fraternity house in college. It was definitely not a yogic setting, and I wanted to leave as soon as I could. At around 11 p.m., there was an intermission. I realized that it was a good opportunity to make my escape. I tiptoed to the storage area and got my guitar. As I was walking out, the woman who was hosting the event stopped me and said, "Oh, we really wanted to hear you perform." She said that I could perform right after the break, which was enough to convince me to stay. Shortly after 11 p.m., I took the stage, and the first thing I did was to explain myself. I'm dressed this way because I am a yoga teacher. Everyone started clapping, which put me at ease. I then performed a song and got a good response from the audience. When the song was over, I asked the host how much time I had left. This particular open mic had a strict 6-minute allowance for each performer. They told me that I had 2 minutes and 46 seconds left. I realized this was not enough time for a song, so I told a short spiritual tale. I had a college roommate who became one of the most respected Zen Buddhist teachers in America, I began. This was true. One of my roommates during my semester in London became a teacher who has written many books and won public recognition. Compared to him, I am nobody. I then launched into the tale of an incident at a Jewish synagogue somewhere in Europe. One day, the rabbi of that synagogue wanted to impress his congregation, I began. He threw himself on the floor before the altar and started wailing, "Lord, I am nobody! Lord, I am nobody!" The cantor saw this and was impressed. He also threw himself to the ground and began saying, "Lord, I am nobody! Lord, I am nobody!" The two of them continued to repeat, "Lord, I am nobody," over and over again, until the janitor in the hallway got curious and looked inside the worship room. He was impressed by what he saw and heard, so he also flung himself to the floor beside the two clergymen and joined in, wailing, "Lord, I'm nobody." At this point, the cantor became annoyed and said to the rabbi, "And look who thinks he's nobody." The audience started laughing and clapping. All in all, it was a successful performance in a place that at first glance didn't appear to be a good setting for my music and spirituality. I bid farewell to everyone as the applause continued and made my way in the frigid December night to the subway station a few blocks away. While I was waiting for my train back to Queens, I struck up a conversation with a man who inquired about my guitar, which was in an odd-sized case. He was wondering what kind of instrument it was. It turned out that the man was in a spiritual music ensemble in New York. We became friends and kept in touch for a long time afterward. Mike Club and Love is the Best. Sometime in January 2009, I went to an open mic evening that was a bit more congenial than the one at the Basement Theater on St. Mark's Street. Lucky Jack's is a boisterous bar on New York's Lower East Side. The street-level bar caters to young people in their 20s and 30s. 2 television sets show the games of New York sports teams, and there's a lot of conversation and clanking of beer bottles. It wouldn't seem like the kind of place for a yogi musician. However, every Thursday, the basement section of Lucky Jack's hosted Mike Club. Mike Club is the brainchild of Sasha Chavez and his partner, Francis Ann. Unlike many open mic hosts, Sasha Chavez is flamboyant and very welcoming. His concept of music and art is remarkably similar to the approach put forward in Ananda Marga's Renaissance Artists and Writers Association, RAWA, which states that art should be an instrument for service and spiritual elevation. When I showed up at Lucky Jack's, Sasha gave me a warm introduction and I played 2 songs. I kept coming back each Thursday and started to make friends with a number of musicians and comedians. One of the comedians said to me in typical New York City style, "After listening to you, I hate less." Another of the stand-up comics got up on stage after one of my performances and said, "Actually, I'm a plainclothes disciple of the previous performer." During this period, when I was going to various venues to perform, I was also looking for a way to make another recording. I was not satisfied with the first CD that we made in Albania and still had a number of songs that had never been recorded. One day I was putting new strings on my guitar when one of the bridge pins became jammed. I couldn't do anything with it, so I took the guitar to a big music shop in Queens. They fixed the pin and the guitar was fine. On the way out, I noticed a business card on the bulletin board advertising recording services, so I called the number hoping to find someone to help me produce another CD. The person who picked up the phone was a Danish musician who agreed to work with me at a very reasonable rate. His name was Ryan Sambelben, or Ryan Sam as he is known in performance circles. Ryan was a skilled singer, keyboardist, guitarist, and bass player who was making his living giving piano and voice lessons. He had a small studio in a garage at the back of his house in Queens, about 2 miles from our Ananda Marga office, and he was eager to produce my songs. When I went to see him, I took out my guitar and played a song. He made a rough recording of the song and told me to come back in 1 week. When I came back, he had made a full backing track, complete with guitar, piano, bass, and percussion. I listened to the instrumental track with headphones and then added my vocal parts. We did this for each of the songs on the CD. Ryan was a vocal coach, and since he had already recorded the complete instrumental arrangements of the songs, I was able to concentrate on the vocal parts, and I was satisfied with how they came out. The title song on the CD was Love is the Best. I recorded the song in 2009, but I wrote it in 2003 when I was still in Albania running the Sunrise School. In June of that year, a young Bolivian American, Gustavo Manja, came to Albania to work as an intern in the school. I introduced him to the teachers, and each day he would help out in the school. One day, Gustavo returned to our office in Tirana and said, "I created a new song for the kids at the school." The song was a simple refrain accompanied by hand gestures, making it perfect for sing-alongs with the kids. It went like this: I love you, with both hands and arms extended out front. I love me, with hands folded in, pointing to your chest. I love you, repeated again. I love me, repeated. And then the closing line, love is the best, with both hands raised high over the head. The kids loved the song and the gestures. Gustavo had to leave after a short time at the school, but I kept singing it with the kids for the next 5 years. One day I thought, this is a good song. Maybe I should add some lyrics and record it. I added 3 verses and performed it at some events in Sweden. Turned out to be a crowd pleaser. Everyone enjoyed singing along and making the hand and arm movements. Love is the Best was recorded in Ryan Sam's studio, and the title track was complemented by 10 other songs. I like all of the songs I put on a CD, but inevitably there are a few that stand out. They are the ones most requested and the ones I like to perform more often. A few of the songs I recorded with Ryan became hits in the sense of the word. And here's a photo of the album cover. I have this CD. It is wonderful. 2 of them share the same theme, but were written a few years apart. In 2002, I was in Malta getting ready to go to an appointment. I had to wait for another person to get ready before leaving the house, and as I was waiting, I gazed at one of the posters in the meditation center. It had a beautiful ocean image and a quotation from Baba that read, "You are never alone or helpless. The force that guides the stars guides you too." While I was looking at that quotation, I started to compose a song expressing the idea that there is greatness within each one of us, and that by remembering this, we can overcome momentary sorrow and rise to tremendous accomplishments. I changed Baba's words a bit and entitled the song, "We Are Never Alone or Helpless." It begins like this. When the problems of the world lay heavy in your head and you don't know where to turn, why don't you go inside and find your inner strength and remember a lesson we must learn? Then the chorus comes in with Baba's words. We are never alone or helpless. The force that guides the stars guides us too. We are never alone or helpless. The force that guides the stars guides us too. We are never alone or helpless. The force that guides the stars guides us too. I started the composition while standing and waiting to go out of the house, but I was able to finish it later when I got back and picked up my guitar. In the late 1970s, a Margie from the Philippines took this same phrase and incorporated it in a sweet spiritual tune. I, however, put the lyrics to a bouncy country-style melody. I performed it live with Brian at the Divine Moon Festival in England, and his fiddle part really fit well with the vibe of the song. On the New York recording, Ryan Sam turned it into a country rock song with a driving beat and zesty piano and electric guitar backing. A few years later, I returned to this theme with a song entitled From Zero to Hero. I got the idea from something I heard from one monk who recounted an experience he had had in India while representing Cairo sector in a reporting session with Baba. The other monks present there were asking him about the work he had done, and he was not able to show much progress, in large part due to the difficulty in bringing a movement like Ananda Marga to conservative areas of the Middle East. Those monks started to criticize him, and he felt bad. At that point, Baba intervened and said that one day Cairo sector will go from zero to hero. In another context, Baba once explained that if you put a 1, is that a 1 or an I? I think it's an I. If you put an I in front of a long No, it's a 1. If you put a 1 in front of a long string of zeros, then it becomes a powerful number. And that 1 is Parama Purusha, the Supreme Consciousness. I took this idea and wrote a song affirming that any moment we can turn a bad situation into something completely different, if we only remember our connection with the Supreme. The song begins with these lines. Don't stay down, erase that frown. Your present state is not your fate. There's more to you than you'll ever know. Reach inside and let it show. And then continues with the chorus refrain. From zero to hero, you can make it if you try. From zero to hero, grab some wings, we're gonna fly. I sent the finished lyrics to one of my colleagues, whom I consider to be a great poet, and he encouraged me a lot by saying that this is the kind of song that can help people who are deeply depressed or even suicidal. His remark reminded me of a song that Billy Joel had written years earlier called Second Wind, based on his personal struggle with depression and suicide. I came up with a tune for the song, and my first public performance of it was fittingly enough at a yoga studio in Cairo. When I performed the song for Ryan, he came back to me a week later with a rousing pop rock soul arrangement. I added my vocal part, and soon we had a finished song for the CD. There is another song on the Love is the Best CD entitled Liberate Your Mind that is frequently downloaded. This is a song in which I turn my attention to the problem of dogma and the restrictions that are placed on our minds in the religious, political, and social arenas of life. The first lines of the song are as follows. The preacher man says you're living in sin. A politician will do you in. How's a common man to win? The song continues with the refrain. You've got to liberate your mind from fear. The day of freedom is coming near. Human life is very dear. As I thought of the song, especially the first line, I imagined that it would sound best gospel style, like in African American churches. I told this to Ryan, and he added a strong gospel piano accompaniment to the song. One day I would like to hear it performed by a gospel choir. Another important song on this CD is I'm Waiting for That Time. The song sums up what I would like to see happen in this world, what my dreams are for the future of humanity. Here are the lyrics for that song. I'm waiting for that time, yes, I'm waiting for that time. I'm waiting for that time, yes, I'm waiting for that time. When good folks will hold their heads up high, when hungry kids will never pierce the night with their cry. I'm waiting for that time, yes, I'm waiting for that time. I'm waiting for that time, yes, I'm waiting for that time. When we'll judge a man by what he does and not for who his father was. When we'll love one another regardless of race and go pitch our tents in any old place. When we'll share the earth's bounty fair and square and watch the world blooming everywhere. I'm waiting for that time, yes, I'm waiting for that time. I'm waiting for that time, yes, I'm waiting for that time. Ryan came up with a sea shanty arrangement for this song that speeds up frantically at the end, and this is how we recorded it. In my public appearances, I perform it as a Bob Dylan-style folk song. The CD also includes a vegetarian song, a doo-wop bhajan, and a techno-trance rendition of the Baba Nam Kevalam mantra. All in all, it was a surprising departure from what might be expected from a musical monk. After a few months of work, the CD was ready, and I went on a tour to promote it. I performed songs from this CD at the Ananda Marga Retreat in Willow Springs, Missouri, at the Prout Convention just outside of Copenhagen. In August of 2009, I even had a feature performance at Luckjack's. Instead of playing 2 songs at the open mic session of Mic Club, I was a featured performer with a full 45-minute set. Ryan Sam came along and played keyboards and did backup vocals, and we performed all of the songs from the Love is the Best CD. This was the official CD release party, and we had a full house that night. It was fun to do Love is the Best, with everyone singing along and making the hand movements just like the kids at the kindergarten in Albania. Of course, it was a little bit different because some people had beer bottles in their hands when they lifted them high to say, Love is the best. And here they are. Love is the Best at Mic Club on the Lower East Side of New York City. Oh, Avatar was wonderful. December. Oh, it was beautiful. It was just very, very long. Very long for my tiny bladder. So I had to miss a couple spots, you know. Back to Brooklyn. Ever since I came back to the U.S., I thought that one day I should visit the old neighborhood in Brooklyn where I had spent the first 9 years of my life, but it took me a long time before I got around to doing it. Visiting the place where I grew up didn't seem to be a valuable use of my time. However, one day my curiosity got the best of me. I looked at the subway map and tried to figure out how I would get to East 96th Street in Brooklyn. It would have been possible to take a bus from Queens to Brooklyn, but it would have required taking a few buses with waiting times in between rides, so I opted for the subway. As the crow flies, Corona in Queens is only 11 miles from East Flatbush in Brooklyn, but the awkward layout of New York's subway system made it necessary to travel to Manhattan first and then change trains for Brooklyn, a trip that would take an hour and a half. I remembered that the closest subway stop to my old neighborhood used to be the East 98th Street station, but when I looked at the current subway map, there was no such station. One station I did recognize was Sutter Avenue. I recalled Sutter Avenue as a street with department stores, street vendors selling niches, a tasty pastry filled with potatoes, and, or is it knishes? Do you say the K? Knishes? Knish. I think it is. Knishes. A tasty pastry filled with potatoes and movie theaters. It was close to where my grandmother used to live, and it was also within walking distance to where I wanted to go. I got on the subway in Corona, headed towards Manhattan, changed trains, and was on my way to Brooklyn. The Sutter Avenue station was not in good shape. It had an old, worn-out look that was not helped by the graffiti on the walls. I got out and took my bearings and headed 2 blocks west along Rutland Road, another familiar street because we used to go to a bakery there that was dedicated to the production of bagels and Benares, an Eastern European soft, white, savory pastry that has been called the cousin to the bagel. I then turned south on 96th Street, walked 2 more blocks, and finally stood in front of the building where I lived from 1946 to 1955. It was a 4-family, 2-story brick building joined to a similar building on its left. The building looked the same, but it seemed to me that the trees on the street had changed. I remember thick foliage of strong sycamore trees whose roots were breaking the sidewalks. There were still some sycamore trees along the street, but they were not as plentiful or as lush as I remembered them. I guess trees have their lifetime and life cycles too, and some of them may have been thinned out. It was a hot summer day, and there was no one out on the street. I walked to the corner of East 96th Street and Clarkson Avenue. This was an important intersection for me as a kid because it was the place where Little Lou's Luncheonette was located. The Luncheonette had a long counter and a soda fountain, and in the front by the cash register there were rows of chocolate and candies. We always used to call this place the candy store rather than a luncheonette, which was the big word the adults used. Like some of the sycamore trees, Little Lou's was no longer around. Instead, there was a storefront church. In fact, there were several churches along Clarkson Avenue. These were churches of various African American Protestant denominations. When I left the area in the early 1950s, everybody there was Jewish, and the only religious establishment on Clarkson Avenue was a storefront synagogue that finally moved to a large structure in 1955, just as my family was leaving the area. Yeah, that would be nice, Julie. Word. An incident from 1952 best describes the ethnic makeup of this neighborhood during the early post-war era. Dwight Eisenhower was running for president against his Democratic opponent, Adlai Stevenson. Eisenhower was a war hero, and he won the election in a landslide, but not in my old neighborhood. The night of the election, my father came home in the late evening. He had been down at Little Lou's Luncheonette, which also served as a polling station during elections, and apparently was able to find out how the vote went in that particular station. According to my father, Eisenhower didn't get a single vote. In those days, Jewish Americans voted solidly for the Democrats. I didn't linger by the site of the old candy store, but went a few blocks on Clarkson Avenue to my first elementary school, Public School 219. It had been given an additional name, Kennedy King School. It was actually quite close to my old house, but the distance seemed longer when I was growing up. School was out, and I couldn't tell how it might have changed in the past 55 years, so I headed back to 96th Street. I was curious to know what had become of the big synagogue that was constructed in 1955, since there were no more Jews in the neighborhood. It was located only a block away from my old home, and when I got there, I found that it had been converted into an annex of Public School 219. It seemed to be a good use of the building. I didn't have any big revelations from this excursion into the past, but my curiosity had been satisfied, and I headed back to Queens. I move to the Midwest. There are some satiric maps with titles such as "The USA Seen by a New Yorker" that show that for a New Yorker, the only thing that is important in New York City, the only thing that is important is New York City and possibly California. The interior or Midwest of the United States is pictured on these maps as an empty or backward area. I had lived in Kansas in 1972, so I knew that there was something in the Midwest, but I couldn't picture myself spending a lot of time there. That changed in September of 2009. During a meeting with some other Acaryas, someone suggested that I go to an Ananda Marga community in Illinois that needed a resident monk. The community was called Ananda Lina. It is a 30-acre project located near the Twin Cities of Champaign-Urbana, about 130 miles south of Chicago. The Margis there had constructed a yoga meditation center, a sprout factory, an organic farm, a communal dining room, and homes for individual families. I visited and found it to be a very beautiful place. Though it was surrounded by cornfields, it was only a short drive to the nearby city, which was home to the largest campus of the University of Illinois. The community, with its own lake and forested areas, had the peace of the countryside but the convenience of a city. I really liked it and decided to move there. Once I was settled, I enjoyed planting a vegetable garden again, and the yoga house where I lived was very comfortable. It was also a great place for small retreats and seminars. We held twice-yearly retreats for Ananda Margis from the Midwest, and I gave local meditation instruction programs as well. In the summertime, I conducted a spiritual lifestyle training program, a 2-week immersion course in meditation and yoga philosophy. I also held training sessions for Ananda Marga local full-time volunteers. I was wondering how you came to be in Urbana, Illinois, Donna. Cool. It's the System, Stupid, and a new CD. As was my wont, I also tried to find ways to perform and develop my music. At that time, there were not as many open mic opportunities in Champaign and Urbana as there were in New York City. But in the small singer-songwriter get-togethers at a university coffee house, I met a musician, Ron Cannon, who was able to help me produce another CD. When I was putting together the Love is the Best album in 2009, I wanted to include more songs on it, but the producer wisely told me to save them for the next project. Though I liked the work that was done on the 2009 album, it was not exactly my style. I wanted something more in the vein of the folk, country, and Americana genres. Ron Cannon was the perfect producer for this. He used to be the frontman for a touring rockabilly band in the 1980s, and he was an exceptional guitarist and sound engineer. Ron brought his recording equipment to the yoga house and we began work. One of the songs that I was eager to record was a song I had written in 2008. I had been listening to the BBC coverage of the U.S. presidential election. Since I'm not a big fan of conventional politics, an idea for a song popped into my mind. In 1992, Bill Clinton famously remarked, "It's the economy, stupid." He ran his campaign on that slogan, saying that he was the candidate who would fix the economy. In 2008, I was sighing about the sameness of all the candidates vying for the presidential nominations. We have another photo here. Looks like I got a little bit of blood on the page. I thought back to Clinton's remark and said to myself, Clinton didn't go far enough. He should have said, "It's the system, stupid." The capitalist economic system is causing the problem, not the particular management style of one or the other parties. I ran with this idea and wrote the song, "It's the system, stupid." Here are the original lyrics. Everybody's wondering why the poor are getting poorer. Politicians saying that they're giving more and more. People scratch their heads while looking for a reason. If I tell you the answer, they may try me for treason. It's the system, stupid. It's the system, stupid. It's the system, stupid. It's the system, stupid. Tweedledee is running for election. Tweedledum says he'll give us some protection. Nobody is getting to the root of the problems. They're going round in circles without a solution. It's the system, stupid. We're traveling together on a tiny green planet. Continue like this, there'll be nothing left on it. It's time to stop the plunder, the greed, and the looting. It's time for some healing, some caring and sharing. It's the system, stupid. You talk about raising the poor from the gutter, but take a look around you at the fat cat's clutter. He can live without his Rolls Royce and luxury toys. There will be enough for all our girls and boys. It's the system, stupid. Without giving a big lecture about capitalism and U.S. politics, I tried to make my views known in those 4 verses and in the chorus. I then sat down with my guitar and fitted the verses to a chord progression, and It's the System, Stupid was born. The song was written after my first CD and was part of the collection of unrecorded songs that I had available when I met Ryan Sam in New York in 2009. I wanted to put this song on the new CD that he was producing for me, but when he heard it, he said, "Dada, you will lose your audience if you record that song." I thought that perhaps his political stance was not as radical as mine. Since Ryan was not comfortable with the song, and since he had advised me to hold some songs in reserve for the next project, I kept this song off the Love is the Best album. But I still liked it a lot and wanted to record it. When I started working with Ron Cannon, I asked him his opinion of the song. Ron had radical political ideas, so I did not think he would reject the song based on any bias. He listened to the song and didn't have any objections to recording it, but he gave me some good advice. If you say it's the system stupid, you are insulting the audience. He had a good point. Not everyone remembered Bill Clinton's original comment. In fact, before performing the song in public, I had to give a small talk explaining the context of the song, and so on. We were able to solve this problem by changing the line, "It's a system stupid," to "It's a system people." While we were in the process of recording the song, Steve, a Margie drummer, came up with a reggae-style backbeat, and the finished song became, in my opinion, one of the best on the album. Another of my unrecorded songs, which I wanted to put on the new CD, was based on a spiritual poem by the Indian mystic Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, 1486 to 1534. Chaitanya, best known for popularizing the Hare Krishna mantra and launching the Kirtan movement in India, wrote a short poem giving powerful advice. He said, "Trunadapi sunichena tarariva sahisnuna amananina manadena kirtaniya sadahari." You must be more humble than the grass and as tolerant as a tree. You must give respect to those whom no one respects, and always do kirtan of the Lord. Baba used to give discourses based on these words, and I thought it would make a good song. I composed "Make Me Humble" with the following lyrics. Look at everybody walking on the grass, yet it pops up once again. It bears the steps and crushing weight without any end. So I've got to be just as strong. You know I'm going to carry on. So make me humble like the grass. I'll be as tolerant as a tree. I'll give respect to all I see. I'll sing your name endlessly. Look at the trees giving everything, asking nothing in return. Fruit and flowers for everyone. It's a lesson I'm going to learn. So make me humble like the grass. I'll be as tolerant as a tree. I'll give respect to all I see. I'll sing your name endlessly. Look at everybody saluting the rich and the pretty ones too. But take a look around you for that poor boy next to you. Give him respect and dignity. It's the only thing we gotta do. So, make me humble like the grass. I'll be as tolerant as a tree. I'll give respect to all I see. I'll sing your name endlessly. Oh Lord, you gave me a voice and I'm singing just for you. I'm gonna sing every day and night, my whole life through. So, make me humble like the grass. I'll be as tolerant as a tree. I'll give respect to all I see. I'll sing your name endlessly. I sang the main vocal on this song, but Ron added an Everly Brothers style vocal harmony part that I really loved. Another song that we worked on was a plea for peace, based on a remark by the late Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. Enough of blood, enough of tears, made after signing a peace accord with the Palestinians in 1993. That phrase became the start of my song, No More Blood, No More Tears, on which I made my first harmonica contribution to a recording. The title song of the CD was As the World Spins Around, a song that appeared on my very first CD in 2003. Why did I re-record this song? First of all, I was not satisfied with how the first CD came out. I thought that many of the songs on it could be improved. But what really got me going was the response I received when I performed the song live in the various open mic venues. I usually use this as the opening song and often had the audience singing along with the easy la 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 chorus. At one venue in Brooklyn, the MC loved the song so much, he always insisted that I come back on stage and do the song again. One time he even pressed me to do it a third time, but I refused. After he accepted my refusal, he said, "That song's going to be a hit one day. I don't know how or when, but it'll be a hit." So we recorded the song again, hoping this would be the hit version. We worked on the CD bit by bit, and Ron had me listen to some of the early versions of the recording. Local fiddle and mandolin players, Margie women vocalists, a stand-up bass player, Steve, the Margie drummer, and Ron with his guitar and hillbilly backing vocals all made great contributions to the final product. At first I was not sure how it would come out. I wondered whether Ron could really make everything sound right. However, when I listened to the final versions of the songs, I was highly satisfied. I named the CD As the World Spins Around. Quite a few people agreed with me that it was my best recording yet. I did my best to promote it, sending it to some 30 radio stations. Some tracks were played on a few community and college radio stations around the country. Iowa Public Radio even played a live kirtan track from the album. The single, As the World Spins Around, has not yet become a hit as the MC predicted, but I don't mind. I am proud to offer the song and the CD to anyone who wants to hear my music. And there's the CD cover. Do what you can. While I was at Ananda Lina, my creative energies were directed into various channels. I began making audio and video recordings of my lectures and put these up on the internet in the hopes of bringing our philosophy and practices to a wider public. I also performed music in social service venues for seniors and children with disabilities. Once a month, I went to the Champaign County Nursing Home and played a mixture of old-time American songs, gospels, and a few of my own compositions. At the Swan School, an institution in Champaign for children with disabilities, I performed a lot of the songs I had performed in the kindergarten in Albania. The only difference was that the children in the Swan School are severely disabled, and it was hard for me to know whether the music was reaching them. The staff assured me that my music was helpful and kept inviting me back for more performances. A weekly farmers market in Urbana provided another venue for my singing. Freed from the time limits of open mics, I played whatever I liked, a lot of my own songs, folk rock songs from the 1960s, Americana, and songs for kids. I noticed that I was getting a good response from the kids at the farmers market. In fact, some Margie families said that their children really enjoyed listening to my CDs. I did not make my previous albums with children in mind, but after seeing the response from the children at the farmers market, I decided to make a CD of children's music. Once I got this idea, I composed an original song based on a legendary story in the Ramayana. This epic poem describes an incident where Rama was building a bridge that was to stretch from India to the island of Sri Lanka, where his wife Sita was held captive by his adversary Ravana. According to the story, there were giant monkeys who were carrying huge stones and even entire mountains to help build the bridge. A small squirrel also wanted to help, but could only carry pebbles to the bridge site. The little squirrel was humiliated by the monkeys, who belittled the squirrel's contributions. Rama came to the rescue, consoled the squirrel, and stroked him on his back. And as everyone in India says, and as my song also proclaims, that's why Indian squirrels have 3 stripes ever since that day. Since the story was already in the Ramayana, it was easy for me to write the lyrics to the song Do What You Can, whose moral is we should work according to our capacity and not mind what others say about us. In addition, I had been listening to children's music, and this helped me to create the right structure for the song with lots of repetition. After the song was written, I performed it at a retreat, and it was well received. I also announced that I was going to make a CD for children. The problem was that I did not have other original songs to put on the CD, so I stalled on the project. Then in the summer of 2013, I held a training session for Ananda Marga volunteers, and one of the trainees was a good musician who also had recording skills. We had a week on our hands before the training was to begin, so we used that time to record Do What You Can, as well as many of the songs that I had been singing with the kids in Albania and elsewhere over the past 10 years. I re-recorded Love Is the Best and The Wise Ones Say, since these are good songs for children, and added Baba's Tiny Green Island, as well as classic children's songs such as The Incy Wincy Spider. Before the week was finished, we had completed the album Do What You Can. The production is less sophisticated than my other albums, which took months to complete, but I also learned, like the title song says, that a small-sized effort is sometimes enough. When someone first requested me to come to Anandalina in the Midwest, I wondered whether this was the right move. I was not sure whether it would be an interesting place to live and work, but my initial misgivings were wrong. I've really enjoyed working from a base in the middle of America and wouldn't mind spending some more time here. And now for the epilogue. Julie, if you can just wait another minute, it'll be done. Epilogue. It is a hot day in the Midwest, the end of summer. The brilliant purple zinnias that I planted in late spring are beginning to fade. The tall pink cosmos flowers waving in the wind next to the zinnias also look less glorious than they did 2 weeks ago. My garden is telling me, just as my calendar shows, that autumn will soon be at hand. And I think about this natural movement. As I think about this natural movement, I am reminded of the movement of my own life. Not many people are born perfect with all of their best traits intact. We develop our skills and good qualities over a lifetime, making lots of mistakes on the way. I wasn't born with a mystical bent of mind and an intense desire to render service to humanity. These are things which I worked on over my whole life, especially in the years since my first encounter with an Ananda Marga teacher. A few years ago, I did a mental exercise. If I could go back in the past, what would I do differently? My mind took a leap to the days when I was growing up. I pictured incidents where I caused pain to others by my words or deeds and thought, this is something I would change. I went through incident after incident, picturing how I would have handled a past situation with my present knowledge and state of being. After coming to the end of my list, I sat down for my normal meditation and felt great peace. Not hurting others intentionally is just the first precept I learned in my encounter with the spiritual path. But when I did that little exercise, I saw how the application of even this one bit of knowledge could have made a big difference in my life. Of course, in reality, we can never go back and correct mistakes done in the past. We can only go on and vow to do better in the future. Baba repeatedly reminded us that our eyes have been placed in the front of our heads so that we can look ahead and not behind. He urged us to not only look ahead, but to move towards our ultimate goal and take shelter in God. This movement ahead towards yoga or union with the Supreme has kept me busy over the years. On top of that, my longing to help create a just and ideal society has also spurred me to move ahead without a pause. The calendar says that I should be in retirement by now. While the calendar informs my garden activities, I am busy planting some fall and winter vegetables. I do not pay it any heed when it comes to my larger plans. I intend to continue working. Hopefully, I will die while working and work even while dying. Over the years, I have learned that whenever I acted in a way that brought me out of my comfort zone, it was then and there that I felt the help of the cosmic magician. I am not as adventurous as I was when I was barnstorming through France as a young monk, giving lectures in city after city, day after day, but I am still active enough to expect and hope for a few more moments when I will again feel a divine wind pushing me onwards. Oh, I have chills. So good. Thank you for sharing your life with us, Dada. Now, I would actually like to hear what has happened since you finished writing this book. Are you writing another one? Are you writing memoir part 2? Because there's more. You know, you can talk about your live streaming. Speaking of live streaming, did you hear about sessions? Holy cow, yesterday. I mean, we all knew this was coming, right? But still, it's very sad. I saw Carrie Westbay posted on Facebook that Sessions Live fired all their employees yesterday and just shut down the platform. I don't think they gave any of the artists any warning. They just shut it down. So we got out at a, halfway decent time, I think. And we found Twitch, which is a really great platform, that it's really, really great for folks like us who care about social justice issues. You didn't plan to write another memoir. Do you? What about a blog? You have your newsletter, though. That keeps people informed. So are you still living at the center, the Ananda, okay, what is it called? Ananda Lena Center? Is that where you live then? Or did you move from the Ananda Lena Center to somewhere else in the area? Oh, they were definitely on a shaky financial base. Definitely. You're still there at Ananda Lena. Cool. And do you have any plans of going anywhere else, or do you feel like that's where you're going to stay? Are you feeling drawn to do any more traveling? It sounds like a wonderful place. You no longer care for traveling. You decided to settle down. I don't blame you. You traveled for a lot of years. Fascinating stuff. So anybody who is watching this, whether you're watching the live version or the replay, I want to encourage you to go to dadaveda.com and also to go to dadaveda.bandcamp.com and pick up this book. And there are other books by Dadaveda. There are other books, and there are several CDs that you will love. So good. I really enjoyed reading about the songs in these last couple of chapters too, especially the songs that I really know and love. Really cool stuff. Really cool. So thank you very much for your service, Donna. Thank you. I appreciate you. So glad I met you. Some good things really did come out of that Sessions platform. I made all these amazing friends all over the globe that I probably never would have met. So thanks to Sessions for that. So this concludes Storytime Tuesday from Brooklyn to Benares and back. Now, I think I'm going to keep Storytime Tuesday, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do next exactly, but I'm really feeling drawn to read The Four Agreements. Do any of you know the book, The Four Agreements? I think I even have it over here. Hold on a second. Let me see if that's one that I brought down. Yes. It is. I'm very eclectic spiritually, and I love to read different spiritual texts. And this one is a Toltec wisdom book, A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom by Don Miguel Ruiz. Have you read this? Absolutely, Donna. I agree. And this is actually going to be a really short read. I might even do it in one session, one or two. But after that, I think I'm going to read the first novel that my friend Harris wrote. Ann Harris just passed away a couple of weeks ago, and wrote many novels. And this is their first, and I think I'm going to read this to honor them. But first, I'm gonna read the 4 agreements. I think that's what I'm going with. And this Saturday, I think we'll be wrapping up Skin of the Sea. Oh, really? Cool. Saturday, I'll be wrapping up Skin of the Sea, and then I don't think I'll be doing any more Storytime Saturday. I think I'll just have Storytime on Tuesdays. Back to the 4 agreements. Let me just tell you what the 4 agreements are, okay? Be impeccable with your word. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. 2, don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Number 3 is don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this 1 agreement, you can completely transform your life. And 4, always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It'll be different when you're healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best, and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. That is good stuff. So I hope you all will join me next Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern for a reading of the 4 agreements. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope you enjoyed Dada Veda's spiritual memoir as much as I did. Thank you for sharing it with us, Dada. Hope you have a wonderful day. My next stream here on Twitch will be Free for All Friday, Christmas music, acoustic Christmas, this Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Come sing some Christmas songs with me. Peace out, Pride-a-Doodles.